Okay, hello, good morning. Thank you everyone for coming in and joining us today's webinar. Today's webinar will be on how to create recurring charges, one of custom transactions and custom transactions as well. So I mentioned before, my name is Lena Kalima. I'm part of the financial team in Alpha, and I'll be hosting today's webinar. I want to thank everyone for taking their time today to join in this webinar. I know everyone has a busy schedule, so I'm very thankful for everyone joining in today. And of course, this webinar will be recorded and it will be sent out to you by the end of the day tomorrow. So please keep an eye on, it will be sent to you tomorrow. And with this webinar as well, since it's been recorded, you can go back on the recordings and share with any of your colleagues as well. So today's webinar will last approximately an hour. And also we do have a Q&A as well. So it depends on the Q&A, it will last an hour. So we highly encourage you guys to ask questions and feel free to ask any questions as we go on. So as I mentioned before, I'm part of the financial team, so finance and client success in Alpha. And yes, we do have a Q&A, which will be at the end. So I will answer all the Q&As at the end of the meeting. Okay, so today's agenda will be explaining Alpha's hierarchy, recurring charges, one-off transactions, of custom transactions, and we will finish off with a Q&A. So before I start, it will just be a quick introduction to Alpha. So if you guys are not familiar with Alpha, so Alpha is a cloud-based property management software. We have 30 powerful features, and we have numerous integrations in Alpha as well. So in Alpha, you can bring tenant, contractor, property owners, and property managers together, as all these users can access Alpha with their browser or using the app. Okay, so I will start off with, before I go to the recurring charges, I'll just explain, I will explain Alpha's hierarchy first. So please give me a moment while I change my screen. Okay, so over here is a dummy account that I've created, and I'm just going to show you guys and explain to you guys different hierarchies we have within Alpha. So Alpha has three different type of hierarchy. So we have the property, we have the unit, and we have the tenancy level. So the property level is the highest for hierarchy in Alpha, and the unit level is the second highest, and the tenancy level is the lowest level of hierarchy in Alpha. So when it comes to defining it, I'll give you guys a quick example. So you can see over here on the property. So we have all the rentable properties over here. And then we have the units as well. So within the properties, we do have a unit, and these will be the units as well. As I mentioned previously, this is just a dummy account. So obviously your account will definitely look different compared to this one here. As well as that, we have tenancies over here. So these are all the tenancies within the property or the unit. So what is defined as a property? So property over here is defined as an asset that holds what you're renting out, for example. And the unit level here, this represents like the physical unit of what you're renting out. So it's like the space within the property. And then we have the tenancy here. So the tenancy level is a digital reflection of tenancy agreement. So usually what you can see over here is all the tenancy agreements that we have within Alpha over here. Okay. Another thing as well, when it comes to the hierarchy. So I'll give an example. So for example, if you have a single let, that's a house, and the property will be the land in a single let, and the unit will represent the house, and the tenancy will be the tenancy agreement. On the other hand, some people have HMOs, so the property will be the building, and the unit will be the rentable rooms within the property, and the tenancy will be the tenancy agreement. So that's how the hierarchy works. If you guys have raised hands, feel free just to drop anything down in the Q&As, and I will explain it to you guys more later on the webinar. So I won't be answering questions now. I'll be answering questions afterwards. Okay. Okay, great. I do apologize for that. It's just a technical error. For some reason, it wasn't allowing me to switch different screens for some reason. So as I mentioned before, we do have the properties over here. So if you click on properties, you can see all the properties over here. So for example, the HMOs and stuff, and residential, and we do have the units here as well. So as I mentioned before, like a single net, the unit will be the land, and within the unit we have, so the property will be the land and the house will be the unit. So you guys can see over here. So as I mentioned previously as well, that was just this is a dummy account, so obviously your account will look different, and the tenancy will be based on the tenancy agreement within that unit as well. And if you have a HMO, for example, the residential place will be the property and the units will be the rooms that you're letting out, and the tenancy agreement will be the tenancy level as well. A call with the functionality team, they can explain it more in more depth. So regarding this webinar here, we'll be discussing the hierarchy, the recurring charges. So when it comes to recurring charges, very easy and straightforward. So it's like automatically raised charge for regular intervals for rent, management fee, or service charges. And I'll be explaining the difference between the rent charge and direct rent and what it's used for as well. And I'll give you guys some examples as well. So I did make 2 tenancies, which I'll be explaining the differences between the both. So we have James Smith here. And as I've mentioned, as you guys know in Arthur, we have, so James Smith is a tenancy and is under tenancy bit in Arthur. Every tenancy in Arthur has a unique tenancy reference. This is just easy to identify which tenant is in which place. So it makes life so much easier. So if you do pop in the live chat sometime, they will ask you, can you provide me the tenancy reference number? So you just provide, this is the tenancy reference number over here. As I've mentioned, every tenancy has a unique tenancy reference. So when it comes to recurring charges, it's very easy and straightforward. If you go on statement here, you can see this is a brand new, it's a brand new tenancy and there's nothing in here. So underneath the statement, you can see the recurring charges here. So I'll firstly explain what a direct rent is. So a direct rent is a charge, and you see it as a direct debit. So it's a monthly fixed amount that will be triggered every whatever day you put it to be triggered on. So, and with direct rent, this is mainly just for landlords. So always remember, direct rent is just straight for landlords, not linked to agents, just landlords. And the reason why we have a direct rent for transaction type is because direct rent is seen as an income. So that's why we have it as a direct rent. So it's very easy and straightforward to add a recurring charge. So you click on recurring charges over here, click on add recurring charge. Before I even start that, I can just show you guys. I did backdate this as well, so you guys can see that this tenancy has started on the 1st of October. So when it comes to adding recurring charges for you guys, always remember that you can always backdate it, so you don't have to literally physically, if, for example, you join Arthur today and you want to raise a rent and you don't know that you can backdate it like literally 12 months prior. You can backdate it anytime, so which is a good thing. So you can see here on the 1st of October, this is when the tenancy started. So I just click on add recurring charge, and this charge is for a tenant. So you guys can see here on the drop down, you have a tenant, property owner, and contractor. So this charge here is mainly for a tenant. You click on tenant, and you create a charge on recurring basis. So this is the tenant's name, James Smith, and to be invoiced on. So I've mentioned, it's like a direct debit. With this one here, since the tenancy has started on the 1st of October, I will start this recurring charge on the 1st of October as well. And we have repeating, so we have the intervals when you want it to be repeated. And you guys can see here, I've selected monthly, so we do have a drop down as well. So if you do have like, you know, student lets and stuff, we do have a variety of different transaction intervals that you guys can choose from. So with this one here, it's a simple monthly, and you guys can see here to be invoiced on the 1st of October. Expected due dates the 1st of October as well. That's all you need to do. And when it comes to endings, you can keep it like this till the end of the tenancy. And if you have a specific, like, you know, date that you want the recurring charge to end, you can always do that as well. So that's not a problem. And then the transaction type here, as I've mentioned, this is a landlord, so it will be a direct rent. So always remember, direct rent for landlords. In the description, you can literally just write direct rent. And the amount for this rent will be £500, and there's no VAT. I'll just click on save recurring charge. So before I even click on the save recurring charge, you guys can see here, we have an option where you have an on and off button. So basically, when a recurring charge is triggered, you can always turn it off. So you don't have to always keep it on. So for example, let's say the rent, the first 6 months, the rent was £500. And then I decide after 6 months, you know what, I'm going to increase it to £700. So you can either disable the recurring charge, or you can edit the recurring charge to £700 for it to continue on. So you guys can see here, the charge is raised for a tenant, and the tenant's name is James Smith, and it's to be invoiced on the 1st of October, and it's repeating monthly. And the transaction type is a direct rent. Description is a direct rent. You can choose any description, but we prefer, you know, to write direct rent. The reason why, because on your statement, it will show a direct rent, James Smith, the tenancy reference, James Smith's name, and the date. So once you're happy with that, just click on save recurring charge. Once that's done, you guys can see here, under recurring charge, a new recurring charge has been triggered, and it was created on the 29th of November today, and it will tell you who's created this as well. On top of that as well, on the eye icon here, if you click on the eye icon, you're able to see charge history, and you're able to see as well the activities that you've done. So if anyone, for example, you have, you know, you're a team of 5 and people are working on different things on the system, you're able to actually log, everything is logged, the history is logged, so you'll be able to actually just go back and see, okay, this person has done this on this day. So it's just good to keep on track with what's happening on your system. So you guys can see here, recurring charge was added for a direct rent, and it shows the date that was the date it was added. So you guys can see here on the 29th of November at 11:17, it was created. Okay, so that's fine. And then what I'm going to do is just go on statement. So because I backdated this for 2 months, you guys can now see that a recurring charge was triggered for the 1st of October and the 1st of November. The reason why there's 2 recurring charges because I've backdated it 2 months. If you wanted it just for it to start the 1st of November, you'll just notice that 1 charge will be created. But because of this example here, there's 2 charges created due to me backing it up, backdating it. So you guys can see here now the outstanding is £1,000 and the overdue is £1,000. And you guys can see that over here, owing to tenant is £1,000. And it's easy and straightforward to pay this. So say, for example, the tenant has paid this charge. It's easy. You just click on pay off charge. We select the bank account, click on add payment. And great. And what you will notice is that a receipt would generate, and it's very important. I'll show you the next step as well. So let's do this one here for the 1st of November. Let's say the tenant has paid this amount as well. And then I'll just click on add payment. So you guys can see 2 receipts have been generated. It can be a bit confusing to know which receipt is for what. As I've mentioned at the beginning, every tenancy has a unique tenancy reference. So the tenancy reference is for the whole tenancy. But when it comes to transactions, every transactions as well have a unique transaction number. So if you was to pop in the live chat and someone was to ask you, can you provide me the transaction, the TR reference, for example? So transaction references do start with TR and the tenancy reference starts with TE. So you guys can notice here, let's go here for this example. This TR 3749 for this the 1st of October's rent for £500. As I showed you guys, I paid this off. And if you want to know which receipt relates to what, you can literally see it here. It's a charge reference. So you guys can see here the 749, it's over here. So this receipt here belongs to this charge here. And this recurring charge here, the one that ends with 750, you guys can see the charge reference is 7R3750 as well. So in that way, you'll be able to identify who has paid what and which receipt relates to which recurring charge. So it's very easy and straightforward. And just to sum it up, this is a direct rent, and this is only for landlords. And you guys can see here, one recurring charge has been triggered. And I'll give you guys another example. So as I mentioned previously, the rent right now is £500. I decided to, you know what, the next rent, I'm going to change it to £600. What you can do as well, in this instance, you click on the drop down, you can edit the recurring charge. So you can edit the days. What I tell people, which makes the life a bit easier as well, is that, you know, if you go on the status here, you guys can see this is active. What you can do is you can also disable the recurring charge. So if you click on the eye icon, if I click on off and I save it, on the status here, it's no longer here anymore. The reason why, because it's been disabled. So this means from the 1st of December, this recurring charge will not trigger at all because I've disabled it. And if I was to click on the filters here, so we do have a filter, you guys can see it's red and it's disabled. That means on the 1st of December, sorry, nothing will be triggered. And let's say for the 1st of December, sorry, I decide, you know what, let me change the rent to £700. And in order to do this, it's very simple and straightforward. You just click on add another recurring charge and the same procedure as well. But this time here, remember, you have to change it for the 1st of December. So I apologize. Change it for the 1st of December. And you change it, make sure as well the transaction type, you change it to direct rent, which is over here. And the description is very simple, direct rent. And the amount, let's say we change to £700. And I will just save that amount. Save. So if I was to go on the active here, you guys can now see the 1st of December, this recurring charge is active. So it's like a direct debit. This recurring charge is ready to trigger on the 1st of December, and the amount it will trigger for will be £700. And if you click on all, you're able to see all the recurring charges that you've produced. So it's literally with Arthur, we archive everything. There's nothing deleted. And the reason why, sometimes, you know, you want to go back on any historical data, or you want to look back on what you've done before. So we tend not to delete anything and just archive it. So you guys can see the disabled one is here. So usually when you do log into your account, and if you go on statement, if you do go on recurring charges, you'll always see the active one on the screen first. It will never be on all or disabled. It will always be an active recurring charge that will appear on your screen. Like I mentioned before, the filters here, you're able to click on all and see all the disabled or active recurring charge. So that's easy and straightforward. And this recurring charge is for a direct rent, as I've mentioned. It's for a landlord as well. It's for a landlord. Now, my second example, I've created another tenancy, which I'm going to show you guys. Aaron Hall. So this is a brand new tenancy I've just created, and you guys can see as well, Aaron Hall, the 1st of October, this is when his tenancy has started. If I click on statement, you guys can see nothing is here. Nothing's here at all. And click on recurring charges, same principle. But when it comes to this tenancy here, as I've mentioned before, the previous tenancy was a landlord. This tenancy here is for property manager or letting agent. So with property manager and letting agents, we have a thing called rent charge. So we have a different transaction type. This is the rent charge. The reason why there's a difference between landlords and property managers and letting agents. So landlords get the money straight into their account with no deductions. However, when it comes to property managers or letting agents, there's always a fee involved. And we always have to add 2 recurring charges, which I'm going to show you guys on an example. So with this example here, the same procedure, this charge is for a tenant, and the tenant is Aaron Hall, to be invoiced on. I'll click on the 1st of October since his tenancy started on the 1st of October. I'll click on here, repeating is monthly, and description is already rent charge there. I'll click on rent charge, and the amount will be £500. And VAT not applicable, and I just click on save recurring charge. So the differences between the direct rent and the rent charge is that with a direct rent, it's an additional recurring charge that you need to add. So you have to add 2 recurring charges. So one for the tenant and then one for the property owner. So you guys can see here, I'll make another charge for the property owner and create a charge on recurring based on basis of which a lot of people do tend to go for percentage or based on rent received, but it depends on how your business is set up. But this example, I'll just click on percentage based on rent received. And transaction type, right, management fee. Click on management fee, and description, simple as well, management fee. And the amount, so you can see here, there's no amount, it's actually a percentage. So it depends how much you charge. Some people charge 10%, 20%, it's up to you. This example, I'll do 10%, and I'll say no VAT is applicable, and I will press save. Now you can see there's a difference with the direct rent charge and this rent charge here. You guys can see now there's 2 management fee, one for £500, which is billed to the tenant, and we have a 10% one for the property owner. So you guys can see here as well. So it shows monthly paid by the tenant, Aaron Hall, and here based on payment received to the landlord, so property owner, letter agent. So we have that here. So you guys can see now the outstanding have triggered, so automatically triggered. That's like the previous one. If I go on the statement here, since I backdated this 2 months before, you can see a rent charge has been created for the 1st of October, and another rent charge has been created for the 1st of November. And just to pay it off is very simple. And before I actually even show you guys that, if I was to go on the property owner statement, there's nothing there. Yeah. So remember, this charge is against tenant and property owner as well. So if I go on tenant's rent statement, what I'm going to do is just pay off the transaction. Very easy and straightforward. As I mentioned before, the description is here. The date that's been paid, so you can always change it. So for example, let's say they paid it on the 1st or whatever, or the 28th, you guys can actually change that. The bank account, the full payment, you can choose from the list. And then you press add payment. Once that's done, and then you guys can see that a receipt has generated. As I've mentioned before as well, the receipt will reflect based on the TR reference here. And then for the 1st of November, same procedure as well. And then pay it off, add payment. And then that's done. So you guys can now see as well, a rent receipt has been generated for the 1st of November. And you can see the TR reference here that relates to it. Okay, that's fine. And now I can show you guys, before I even show you guys, that you guys can see the outstanding is 0 and the overdue is 0, just to show that it's been paid off and the balance is now 0. But now, if I was to go on the property owner statement, you guys can now see the management fee over here. So remember, we deduct 10% off the rent, which is £50. So tenancy receipt is here, and the reason why it's overdue, because we haven't directly paid it to the property we haven't paid it to the property owner. So when we press remit to the property owner, so obviously, so this is a, give me a moment. So over here, or your commenter stage over here, you can see Aaron Hall, Aaron Hall. So what you need to do, as I mentioned, this is a test account. So some of the stuff here doesn't relate to it. You just untick which one. So we did for the 1st of October. You guys can see this property owner has different tenants in here. So not John Stevens, not John Stevens. So you guys can see now Aaron Hall, Aaron Hall, Aaron Hall, Aaron Hall. So that's been ticked off and it shows £900. But what I would do is just, sorry, I'll just move the toolbar, £900. So remitting transaction basically means a fancy word for saying it's you're paying it off the property owner. And then you choose a remittance date, and then today we'll just do the 27th. And the amount, and the remit. So now if I go back on that tenancy, print a statement, and then click on property owner statement. You guys can see now the overdue is no longer. Reason why it's been remitted. So this shows that it's been sent to the property owner. So he did get his £900 of the rent. And the reason why it's £900 because £50 deducted for every rent produced. So that's the difference between a rent charge and a direct rent. So always remember, a direct rent is relates to property owner letting agents, and there's always team management fee involved. However, direct rent, direct rent. So a rent charge is for property owners and letting agents, and there's team management fee involved. And a rent charge, first I'll go here to show you guys again. So you guys can see a management fee and rent charges produced. So this is for letting agents or property managers. And when it comes to direct rent, it's just straight to the landlord. And you see over here, these two charges here, the reason why we do have a management fee, because it looks like a liability. So the property manager is holding the money. It's actually not their money. That's the reason why we decided, to default it to a rent charge to show that it's a liability. So go on the liability account, then go on the income account because the money is not going straight to the landlord's account. Okay, that's that. The next step is, just give me a moment. Go back on the PowerPoint. Okay, guys, now I've just explained the recurring charge, and I will mention it again. Direct rent is for landlords, and rent charge is property managers or letting agents. And the differences between the two is that direct rent will have one recurring charge, and a rent charge will have two recurring charges, one rent charge and a management fee, which is on based on rent received. And that's the differences between the both. And my next one would be a one-off transaction. So any one-off transaction are added within the statement of either a tenancy unit or property, and is used for adding pro rata rents, disbursement, and deposits. And I'll be explaining this what the difference between a sundry charge and a disbursement recharge. Now I'm going to go back on my office screen and give you guys an example. Great. Hopefully you guys can see the office screen now. So we've done that, and obviously the outstanding is 0. Okay, a sundry charge. So a sundry charge is a one-off transaction, or sorry, a one-off cost for a tenant. So for example, I'll make one now. as a transaction. So when it comes to transaction type, we do have like a default. We have different ranges of transaction type. As I've mentioned before, this is a dummy account, so we have a lot of different charges and credits and receipts payments as well. With you guys might not have this, so you need to add this, and I'll show you guys how to do this within the next slide. So with this one here, we're going to make a sundry charge. So we're going to produce a cost for a tenant. So for example, it's a broken bed, they've broken the bed, and obviously we're going to charge it on that statement, and it's a sundry charge. So remember, sundry charge is for a tenant, and example description here will be, say, broken bed. And today's date. If you do have an invoice number, you can put an invoice number as well. And you guys can see here, paid to buy is a tenant, and you click on the tenant. And this example here, I'll just charge them £100 for the bed. You guys can now see on the tenant statement here, always look at the statement. It's very important to look at the statement. And there was a broken bed charge, sundry charge for the 29th and £100. And the reason why, if you scroll down, it's £100 the tenant needs to pay off. So normally it would say overdue, but today's the 29th, so by tomorrow it will say overdue because it hasn't been paid. So for example, if a tenant has paid us, it's very easy and straightforward. You just click on pay off, choose the same procedure when it comes to paying the rent. You choose the bank account and the method, and you click on add payment. And a receipt has generated as well. So when it comes to receipt, you guys can see it's the same procedure when it comes to rents as well. You guys see the TR reference here, the one that ends with 62. The sundry charge receipt here relates to the one that ends with 62, and it's been paid off. And now you guys can see that the balance is 0 on him. So that's a sundry charge. Now I'm going to explain to you guys a disbursement charge. So disbursement charge is similar to a sundry charge, and a disbursement charge is a one-off transaction, one-off cost for a property owner. So a sundry charge is for a tenant, and a disbursement charge or disbursement recharge is for a property owner. So same procedure here. I will click on, and so a lot of people do say, oh, since it's for the property owner, do I have to be on the property owner statement? Yeah, you can go to the property owner statement and do it, but you don't have to, because when you do click on who's paid by to, property owner will automatically go to the property owner statement, which I'm going to show you guys right now. So very simple and straightforward. Click on disbursement charge. So remember, it's a disbursement recharge. And this one here, let's say, is a sink. So a broken sink, we just say broken sink. See, broken sink. And we can put today's date. And now you guys can see paid by. You guys can see here on the drop down, we have property owner, tenant, contractor. And this example here, I'm just going to put property owner, and the amount will be £100 to the property owner. And when I press save, you guys will see that it will be in the property owner statement as well, which I can show you guys right now. And the same procedure as well when it comes to invoice number. If you guys do have invoice numbers as well, you guys can add that there. So I press save. And then, okay, great. Now, if I go on the property owner statement, you guys see it automatically goes to the property owner statement. We're here on the property owner statement. You guys can see a disbursement recharge has been generated for a broken bed for £100. And you guys can see owing the property owner £100. If that's paid off, the same procedure as well. You'll just click on add payment. And that's been done. I'll give you guys another example where you want to make a markup, or let's say, for example, there's a disbursement charge. It's the exact same thing again for a broken bed. And the tenant is against the property owner for £100. However, you got a contractor to fit this bed. So you guys can see here, create additional transaction for a contractor. Click on this click on this box here, and you guys can select contractors. So we do have sorry, we do have what do you call it? We do have a system where you can add all of the contractors here. So with this one here, since it's a dummy account, we already have at least 4 contractors. I'll just click on Joe. And transaction type for contractor, same procedure, disbursement recharge, it's a broken bed. And let's say, for example, I want to make a markup now. I'm gonna charge £100. So contractor, we paid £100 to the contractor, and I'm gonna make a markup of £30 to the property owner. So the landlord owes me £30 to do this job. So you guys can see here. If you do have any work orders as well, you can click on the work orders. With this example here, we don't have any. So you can see I've just made a markup. So £100 for contractor charge, and I've charged the property owner £130 just to show that I've made a £30 markup on here. When I click on save transaction, now you guys can see this. So on the property owner statement, we can see that £130 being charged to the property owner. And if I click on contractor statement as well, because I charged it to the contractor as well, you guys can see in the contractor statement there's £100 outstanding. And to do this as well, it's very simple and straightforward. You just click on payoff, and a receipt will generate. So it will always take you back to the tenant statement. Always just go back on a contractor statement, and you guys can see a receipt will generate to show that it's been paid, and you guys can now see the balance is 0. And that's, as mentioned before, the TR reference. You guys can see that this charge reference here links to this charge over here. And now if I was to go on the property owner statement, I can see a disbursement recharge has been triggered for £130. And if I was to pay that off, then you go back on the property owner statement. Remember, it always take you back to the tenant statement. You guys can now see it's been paid off and it's been approved, and you guys can see a receipt has been generated. So you guys can see this charge was 766 and receipt has generated for 766. So the procedure is very easy. It's easy and straightforward. Another thing as well, let's say, for example, I'll go back on the tenant statement. Because I've mentioned before, recurring charges are fixed amount. So you see as a direct debit. Direct debit doesn't fluctuate. So it's a fixed amount of a specific day. Let's say, for example, you had a tenant moving in and, you charge them like £100, or they say, or maybe like £500, no, £500 since the rent's £500. Let's say you charge them like £300, the moving in fee or something like that. So you guys can always just add it manually. So anything that fluctuates and it's not fixed, you can manually add it. So you don't always have to have. So for example, if you on your type of business, you don't have a fixed amount of rent and not a fixed amount of day, you can literally add the charges manually. This is a lot of manual work, but you can do this as well. So simply you can click on rent charge, you can write moving in fee. But if you do charge a moving in fee, let's say this is charge for the first, and we charge Aaron Hall £300 moving in fee. You guys can see, obviously it will not be at the top here. So you guys go scroll down. So everything here, you can see the 1st of October, a rent charge had been charged. And you guys always look at the description. So having a description is very important to know what's the charge about. So I can see here, moving fee was charged £300. And if Aaron did pay this amount, very simple and straightforward, just click on pay off charge. And then you click on add payment, and now you guys can see the amount is 0, and now you guys can see that a receipt has been generated. So if I was to go up, the receipt will always be at the top. So it depends on what date you paid off these receipts. So if I did this example, it automatically chose the 29th because today's the 29th, but I could have literally just said, oh, you know what, I paid it on the 1st of October. you will see the receipt here next to the 1st of October. And you guys can see here 770, the reference 770 has been paid off. So remember, when it comes to recurring charges and one-off transaction, recurring charges are fixed amounts that is triggered monthly or whatever interval you have your business setup is. And when doing one-off transactions is literally anything. It's a one-off transaction. You guys can, so it's not a fixed amount. You guys can put as much transaction as you want, and there will be no interval for this transaction here. Okay, so that explains it. And my next bit, I'm going to explain the custom transactions that we have in Arthur. Okay, so just give me a moment here. I'll share my screen. Okay, so I did explain the sundry charge and disbursement charge. Now, custom transaction. So Arthur allows you to customize the financial module. So with Arthur, there's a default analysis code and frequencies that suit most situations. However, we recognize that clients may want to further customize with regards to transaction types and frequencies as well. So we have two things that we have. We have analysis code. This is transaction type, and we have frequencies. So frequencies, as I've showed you guys, is how frequent you want the rent to be. So I will show you guys my screen. I'll change the screen. I'll show you guys some examples to deal with this. So when it comes to bespoke analysis code, so analysis code are extremely powerful. So as I've mentioned, this dummy account here, we do have a tons of analysis codes already imported into the system, but with you guys it might be different, and I'll show you guys how to do this as well. And another thing about this webinar, when it comes to analysis code, adding one-off transaction, don't worry if you don't understand it properly. We do have knowledge-based articles that you guys can go over, and everything that I explained today will be there as well. And also what's so good about this knowledge-based articles is videos, and it shows you literally step-by-step of how to do everything that I've taught you guys today. So I will show you guys. I'll go back on the tenancy. Great. So over here, let's say, for example, adding a recurring charge or a one-off transaction. Let's say, for example, this is a student let. So this example here, I just showed you guys a residential home, and a monthly rent, and it's very easy and straightforward. So you guys can see here, when it comes to analysis code, so when it comes to, before I even start with student lettings, we have HMOs as well. So it just depends on how your business works. So with HMOs, you will not have a, what do you call it? Your transaction type will be different. And for people, for example, universal credit or housing benefit, we do have a lot of clients with housing benefit and stuff. So with housing benefit, it's very easy and straightforward. I'll give you guys an example. So Aaron Hall, before I do that, let me just disable all these recurring charges, turn it off, just to avoid confusion. Turn it off. Let's remove the toolbar here. Scroll down and turn off the recurring charge. So with here, when you do this section here to be invoiced on, you just choose the first. So I'll explain the analysis code first. So when it comes to analysis code, it's like a transaction type. As you guys can see here, we do rent charge or direct rent. So analysis codes on transactions that behave in a certain way on the statement. Say they describe the details of the transaction or ledger. So Arthur will provide you guys with default ones, and you guys can obviously choose from the list on if not based, so you guys can see here, we have tons of analysis code produced for this test account here. But with your account, you might not have everything that we have here. So you guys can add this up. So for example, here, I've done one already. It's a HB rent. So this is a housing benefit rent. So always remember, when it comes to ARFA, so just go back on here. You guys can see the charges. So we have a charge and we have a receipt. So as I showed you guys before, first to go back here on statement. The way the system works is that any charge produced, for example, a rent charge is produced. What's the outcome of a rent charge? It will be a receipt. So it's the opposite type of the charge. Yeah. So when it comes to recurring charge, if I was to add one for housing benefit, for example, housing benefit, a housing benefit receipt will then trigger. It won't be a direct rent, it will be a housing benefit receipt. And if you guys, if I was to go on financials, in order to do this as well, you go on financials, you click on analysis code, and you guys can see here, so this is a test account, we produced so many. And you guys can see here, the cost is custom. So you've got HB rent, standing for housing benefit rent. If I click on it and I click on edit, so housing benefit rent, and what I did was, so paid by is tenant, and it'll be on the tenant statement because it's for a tenant. And the opposite type will be a HB receipt, which I created. So we do have knowledge-based articles regarding this as well. It's very easy and straightforward. At first, it's a bit hard to understand, but once you do it, the more you do it, it will become easier. So you guys can see here, I did make a transaction type of HB rent, and I saved it here. So remember, when it comes to analysis code, you always have an opposite type. So the opposite type is the receipt, the HB receipt. Like with the rent, we got the rent charge, and what's the opposite type of the rent charge is the rent received from tenant. Direct rent, the same procedure. What's the opposite type is direct rent received from tenant. So that's how it works. And I can give you guys an example here as well. So if you go on the list, you guys can see that there's always two produced. So one for the charge, and the second one is for the opposite type. So I'll show you guys an example here. So I'll go on this tenancy again. Actually, I've done so many things on this tenancy. Let's go on the other tenancy here. Sorry. Let's go back on James Smith. And with James Smith, I do apologize. I'll try to be a bit quicker as time's running out. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to avoid all these transactions, and I'll show you guys void. I'll show you guys how to add one, for example, when it comes to housing benefit. And one thing about ARFA as well, as I mentioned previously, we do not delete anything. Anything voided, you guys can click on the show void. It'll show you all the transactions voided. Although it won't be it won't appear on the statement, but it will appear when you click on show void, so nothing's deleted, just to keep historical data, because you never know. And over here as well, on the eye, what I'm going to do is I can't delete this recurrent charge, I'll just disable it and I turn it off. And with this one here, I'll add a recurring charge to say this is a housing benefit tenant. James Smith's a housing benefit tenant. I'll just do the first to make life easy. Transaction type. So when you do produce the analysis code of the opposite transaction, it will appear on the list here. So you guys can see here, we do have a lot of do have different ones. The HB rent, and that's for housing benefit and same procedure. The amount is £500. VAT not applicable, so it's £500 recurring charge. Save. Only did this for the 1st of November, so only one will trigger. under statement, and you guys can see it's overdue over here. So it's £500. And you guys can see the transaction type is HB rent. You can literally write housing benefit rent, but I just wrote HB to make life easier, just to shorten it up a little bit. Once that's been paid off, now you guys can see HB receipt has been produced. Yeah, as I've mentioned, this is the opposite transaction type to the HB rent. So instead of saying a rent received from tenant, this will be HB receipt, just housing benefit receipt. So you guys can see here it's being produced. So that's how you add analysis code. And another example that I will show you guys as well, when it comes to adding transactions, when it comes to repeating. So as I mentioned, this is a test account. We do have a default ones. We do have default ones on your account already. So after this call, just feel free to check if you want to add any more. So you guys can see the ones that I've done previously, just a monthly. But let's say, for example, it's a student let, or it's however frequent you want the rent to be. You guys can always choose. We've got student calendar. We've got half yearly. We've got annually. Some people only got one what do you call it? One recurring charge for the whole year. We've got the daily, we've got weekly. Even when it comes to housing benefit, a lot of times with housing benefit, they tend to pay weekly. So you guys can click on weekly. What you'll just notice is that will be every week a new recurring charge will trigger on the account. So if I got to go back to financials over here, and custom frequencies. So remember, when it comes to the transaction type, that's analysis code, and custom frequencies is how frequent you want the rent to be. So for example, we do have a student calendar one here already produced. You guys can see if I was to edit this. Sorry, if I was to view this actually, it will show you guys that January, the amount will times by 4. May, the amount will times by 2. September, the amount will times by 3. And you guys can see it's a total of 9 months. So this is a student let. So it depends how frequent you want the rent to be. It doesn't have to be monthly. You guys can choose however you want the rent to be. So we have an option for you to do it here. And once that's done, if you was to go on to any tenancy and let's say, for example, add a transaction or add a recurring charge, recurring charges, add a recurring charge, you guys can see it here, the repeating over here. You guys can definitely change it up. So if it's student calendar, we'll change the student calendar. And what you'll notice is that you guys can see here, you can't even change it. So because of the custom frequency that you produced for the student calendar, it will show that on the 29th of the 1st to the 29th of January 2024, a payment will be produced, and that will be up till the 28th of May 2024. So you guys will know that there'll only be 3 recurring charge in this statement triggered at because it says student calendar, and student calendar is a lot of time landlords or letting agents, they take the money based on student finance, which is 3 months. So you guys can always alter it. It doesn't have to be student let. It can be different things as well. We do have like English quarter days. We have different ones. So you guys can always change it, how frequent you want the rent to be. And once that's saved, obviously I haven't done it here, but once that's saved, you guys will just notice that it will appear on the statement here. So it won't be repeating monthly. It will repeat based on how frequent you want the rent to be. So that's that. So when it comes to analysis code, let me just wrap it up. I do apologize for going over time. Let me just wrap it up. So when it comes to analysis code, this refers to transaction types. So if you go on your drop down and you notice there's a transaction type that's not there, you can always add it here as well. And we do have knowledge-based articles when it comes to transaction types as well. And then custom frequencies is how it explains how frequent you want the rent to be. So it depends on the frequency of the rent. If we have the frequency that you don't want to, if we have a frequency that you don't have, you can always add that to it as well. So that's the differences between the two. We do have knowledge-based articles, and do feel free to use our live chat over here. We're here to help you guys. We work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5:30. We're here to help you guys solve anything as well. And feel free to book tutorials as well if you can. That's it for me. We'll just resume. Sorry, that was resume. Yeah, so and that's it. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. I know we went over time, and I do apologize for going over time. And if you guys have any questions right now, just note it down. I'll be able to answer it. But feel free, if you have any questions, please say it. And I do apologize. I know I've gone over time. I have 5 minutes to spare. Any Q&As that you guys want me to go over. As I mentioned as well, it's very easy and straightforward. We do have knowledge-based articles as well. And this call, it is recorded. So you guys will receive this call. You guys will receive this webinar by tomorrow. So end of tomorrow, you guys will have this ready for you guys as well. So uh, all right. Thank you so much for your time. I know everyone's saying everything's great. Thank you so much for your time, guys. I appreciate you guys for joining this webinar, and I do apologize for going over time. This will be sent out to you guys by tomorrow. And thank you once again for using Arthur.